That's the end game. How are you guys planning on beating that?
This is how you end, Tony.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Marvel is going to start filming Avengers Doomsday in less than 2 months, and we finally started getting news on all the characters that are coming back. I've already done a few videos on some of the really big surprises like Chris Evans, Haley Atwell coming back. Marvel has already told us at length about Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom coming back, but more official casting lists have finally started to drop with a ton more names, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. It's just getting started. We've also got a bunch of Marvel Super Bowl trailers coming really soon too. But the reason why you've been hearing about everyone from Avengers Endgame, some of the Marvel TV actors coming to Avengers Doomsday is because they're going to start filming the movie in March, around the time we're going to be getting Daredevil Born Again episodes. Which interesting coincidence because Charlie Cox's Daredevil is supposed to appear in Avengers Doomsday. Remember way back when we were getting ready for Avengers Infinity War and everybody kept asking the Russos if they were going to include the Netflix Defenders characters in? And they did actually address that after Infinity War came out. They gave a very political answer, but the main reason is the Marvel Studios people didn't really care about what the Marvel TV people were doing, and at that time those were two completely different divisions. But the reason we learned about Charlie Cox showing up in Avengers Doomsday is actually from his personal trainer who get him in shape for all the Marvel stuff that he does, who just said that he's getting him in shape now for Avengers Doomsday. I am sure his trainers got a very nasty phone call from Marvel after that. Recently, though, an official casting list dropped. I don't know how official this is. Obviously, it doesn't have every single person on it, but it does have a couple really big names. You notice a lot of these names are also attached to teams that we're going to be seeing in upcoming movies this year. Makes a lot of sense. Just starting at the beginning of the list here, of course we have Robert Downey Jr., first person on the call sheet here, coming back as his Doctor Doom, who's supposed to be from the same universe as the Fantastic Four movie will take place in. Supposedly we're going to see him in live action for the first time near the end of that movie. We actually should be getting the first official trailer for that around the Super Bowl. Of course I will do all of the videos for that. I'm not expecting him to show up in that trailer though. But this is also the reason why you're seeing Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach on the list next to him because, like I said, it sounds like they all might be coming to the MCU from that same Fantastic Four universe at the end of their movie. It sounds like something is going to happen to their universe during their movie. Maybe it gets destroyed in an incursion or something happens with Galactus and Franklin Richards, but they wind up escaping to the MCU. Maybe that'll be a post-credit scene, we'll find out. Because they changed the movie from Kang Dynasty to Avengers Doomsday, they're going to have to recast Kang and then wrap up that storyline at the very beginning of the movie, so there will be some sort of tag to completely wrap that up, and then they'll probably never address it again. We kind of saw how they're handling this during the What If series, where like they were already using Kang's time chair, but just making it seem like Kang was already dead and gone. Next big one on the list, pretty obvious here, Tom Holland is Spider-Man. Pretty self-explanatory, he'd be one of Marvel's biggest characters. In the original MCU, Tony Stark Iron Man was kind of like a surrogate father to him. One of the big things the Russos talked about was the way they want to pay off a lot of relationships in the previous MCU and what's happening with Secret Wars. So obviously one of the biggest twists of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame was the whole Iron Man-Spider-Man relationship with him dying and then their reunion during Endgame. Then with him dealing with Iron Man's death. So they probably really want to hype up the reveal moment when he probably thinks that his Iron Man has come back from the dead, only to find that it's Doctor Doom, who's going to be worse than Thanos in the MCU. That's why everybody's been posting the I Hate You 3000 memes. I fully expect Tom Holland to survive Avengers Doomsday and return in Secret Wars. In either before or during one of those movies, they will give him the black symbiote suit, like his version of the Venom symbiote, and they'll try to include some comic book Secret Wars Easter eggs for the way that he originally got the symbiote suit in the 1980s Secret Wars. This is one of the other big things that's going on right now. We've been talking about Spider-Man 4, like Tom Holland is getting ready to start filming that. At some point, like eventually they will start working on that. But currently that movie is scheduled to be released in summer 2026. That could wind up changing because we keep hearing about them working on the Spider-Man script. But either way, it's releasing after Avengers Doomsday, but before Avengers Secret Wars. So there's been all kinds of questions about this. If it's going to be a movie set on Battleworld, like how are they going to address the end of Avengers Doomsday? My assumption right now, just based on what Marvel has revealed, and it sounds like Spider-Man 4 will be a relatively big multiverse movie, like they want it to be bigger than Spider-Man Far From Home. What they might wind up doing is pulling an Ant-Man and the Wasp. If you remember that movie, it basically took place before the events of Infinity War, but the ending of that movie had a tag scene which basically synced it up with the snap, with Thanos' snap at the end of Avengers Infinity War. So they might just do the same thing with Avengers Doomsday, where Spider-Man 4 takes place around the same time that Avengers 5 is taking place, and then the end of that movie takes place with the collapse of the entire multiverse, and Spider-Man wakes up in Secret Wars on Battleworld. There's been all the talk about the death of the Sony Spider-Man universe. Like, they are definitely going to be rebooting their own Sony universe, like the Spider-Man spin-off movies, off on their own. But I think they want to include Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom, during Secret Wars at least. There's all the Noel God of Symbiotes storyline. They could invoke some of that during Spider-Man 4. Like, some things could survive, some plot elements from the death of the Sony Marvel universe. Literally anything else that Sony has done, they can completely ignore. Next big person on the list, though, is Elizabeth Olsen. Of course, Scarlet Witch is going to come back. We all knew she was going to come back at some point. You don't see a body, it means she's not dead. There were a couple Easter eggs for that during the Agatha series, too, but she was just seeing visions in her head, like she wasn't actually seeing the legit dead body of Scarlet Witch. That whole series was basically setting up the Young Avengers Children's Crusade arc that they're going to be using through Secret Wars and after Secret Wars. Like, it won't complete with Secret Wars. Billy and Agatha going to find Tommy, then eventually they'd learn about what happened with Vision, and then they'd find Scarlet Witch. So, like, it's all on the list that they're slowly going down. We're going to get that Vision TV series next, where they'll basically follow up on that arc. But I believe the report right now is that when she returns in Avengers 5 Doomsday, she'll be helping Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. And it sounded to me, like the way people were talking about it, it sounded like they were spinning it like the Children's Crusade arc, where Billy and Tommy learn that she's being gaslit by Doctor Doom, and then they try to save her. This also gets into the whole concept of anchor beings that they introduced during Deadpool and Wolverine. That was a big Kevin Feige thing. We'll get into that in a second. Next big person on the list here is Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier, who appears next to all the Thunderbolts characters. No coincidence here, because we heard that they were coming back in Avengers Doomsday. Florence Pugh, Wyatt Russell, David Harbour, Hannah John Kamen, Olga Kurylenko, so that means that Taskmaster could survive the Thunderbolts movie and come back. We'll see about that. The one thing here, though, that's kind of weird is that Sentry is not on the list here. What that might mean, though, is that Val turns the Thunderbolts into her version of the New Avengers, but they're more like the Dark Avengers in the comics, and that's why there's an asterisk in the title of that movie. But the only way to explain that the Sentry doesn't come back for Avengers Doomsday is that he's either dead at the end of that movie, or they find a way to completely take away his powers somehow, rendering him useless to the story of Doomsday and Secret Wars. So without seeing that movie yet, my early theory is that they keep him alive, like he survives the Thunderbolts movie, but they find a way to take his powers away or block them mentally, so they can always bring him back in the future for some other big story like World War Hulk, but not for several years. Then you have Chris Evans. We heard about him a while ago. I've already done a big video about him coming back, but he's not coming back as his original MCU Steve Rogers or as his Johnny Storm from Deadpool and Wolverine. He'll be an alternate version of Steve Rogers. Most likely on Doctor Doom's team. We've been calling them an evil Avengers team, but he'll just probably have his own team that he's assembled from the multiverse. Now, Chris Evans could be playing a version of Nomad. There's a lot of theories about that, or Hydra Captain America. My guess right now, though, is probably Nomad, just because Chris Evans probably doesn't want to play an actual Nazi, and that's basically what Hydra Captain America is. Haley Atwell is on the list a little bit lower here. I'm expecting her to show up as a version of Peggy Carter, maybe in flashbacks as reactions for like the Chris Evans storyline during the movie, or some scene in the past. I'm not expecting her to come back as Captain Carter. We could see a version of Captain Carter in Secret Wars, just because it feels like Marvel was really obsessed with her for a long time, like they turned the entire What If series into a Captain Carter series. But at the end of that, they kind of turned her into a god, so it wouldn't really make sense for Captain Carter to come back. They also killed the one during Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, so if a version of her character comes back, it'd have to be from yet another universe. Scarlett Johansson isn't on this list, but she's supposed to be coming back. They didn't say who she'd be playing, though. Alternate universe Black Widow or some other character. Generally, I would expect all the original Avengers to come back in some form. But like Mark Ruffalo, for instance, he's MCU Hulk. He'll be back because he's still alive and active, just like MCU Thor. Same goes for Hawkeye, he'll also probably be back, even though he's been recovering from his real-life accident. Like, it was a really bad accident, but he has been filming new TV series recently, so he's capable of actually filming the movies, but just probably will not do any of his own action scenes. He'll just let the stunt doubles do that stuff. Anthony Mackie is next on the list. His Captain America will come back, that's pretty obvious. The report is that he'll be forming a new Avengers team with the surviving Avengers after Endgame and the new characters, and we'll start seeing Easter eggs for that by the end of the Captain America Brave New World movie. We're literally going to be watching that movie in a couple weeks, so we won't have to wait too long to figure out what's going on with the new Avengers during that. Makes sense we would see a version of that team show up during Doomsday. Next big character on the list is Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange. They hyped him up as being critical to the whole plot of the incursions during Multiverse of Madness and during that post-credit scene, so of course he was going to come back. I think they're still making Doctor Strange 3, but we haven't heard anything about it in a while. They didn't say when they're going to release it. Originally it was supposed to be before Secret Wars. We will see if that sticks. The storyline that they set up for him during Multiverse of Madness was the idea the Illuminati were blaming him for this. They said that they killed their own Doctor Strange, and then you have Supreme Strange claiming that Doctor Strange was actually the most dangerous thing in the multiverse to the integrity of the multiverse. Not someone like Thanos, not some other grand villain. Doctor Strange was meant to be the worst possible thing to the multiverse. So Marvel was basically blaming the incursions on Doctor Strange, and a couple other characters too, like Spider-Man during Spider-Man Far From Home because of what happened with the spell. That even though Clea isn't mentioned on the list here, they hyped her up as being so important to that incursion storyline. I'm expecting her to come back during Avengers Doomsday, at least as a small character. Reportedly, Ana de Armas is supposed to be in talks for a role. I've seen people asking if she's going to be playing Black Swan from the Secret Wars storyline. That's totally possible, but Marvel has not confirmed who she's playing. The reason why people have been talking about Black Swan is just because she was a big part of the Time Runs Out storyline that they're adapting for Avengers Doomsday. Originally, after an incursion destroyed her universe, she was recruited to the Black Swans team, a coalition of multiverse Black Swans who all served Doctor Doom in his quest to destroy the Beyonders, who were the real villains of that storyline. Here's the thing with that though, I'm not expecting them to include all the stuff from Time Runs Out in the comics, so I think they might cut out the whole part of the Beyonders being the real people behind the incursions. So if she winds up in the movie, she could just be playing someone who helps Doctor Doom, the way that Thanos had his own Black Order team during Infinity War and Endgame. A long time ago, all the trades were reporting that over 60 characters would be returning for Doomsday and Secret Wars, so it really makes it sound like every single character is coming back in some way, but that's not every single character. The MCU Avengers, and have it just take place mostly in the MCU. Then Secret Wars would be more of like a true multiverse movie with a bunch of other characters from other universes. My early theory is that it'll be similar for Avengers Doomsday, where Robert Downey Jr. and his group of characters that he brings from the multiverse will mostly attack the MCU. Then Secret Wars will again be that true multiverse movie with like a multiverse Avengers team. So we'll mostly just be seeing a couple multiverse characters and MCU characters in Doomsday, and when we get to Secret Wars, you'll see characters like, say, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, Venom, Tom Hardy's version, original Fantastic Four maybe, Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider, a ton of classic X-Men, First Class era X-Men. Basically giving all those legacy actors their own version of Avengers Endgame, kind of like a bigger version of Deadpool and Wolverine in the way that it was sort of a send-off legacy Logan-style movie for a lot of those legacy actors. Speaking of which, there has been talk now of Deadpool and Wolverine also coming back in both Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. They didn't say exactly how they're going to accomplish the Doomsday part of that because they ended their movie in the main X-Men universe, so they have to find some way of getting them into the MCU or including them in a tag scene. Probably the easiest way to accomplish that would be the TVA, just because Deadpool is so connected to the TVA now. Next big question is the God version of Loki. Like, when will Loki be back? I know he's going to be back during Secret Wars. We might also see him during Avengers Doomsday, but they haven't confirmed exactly what his storyline would be in Doomsday. Just because you do have to answer the question, if he is so powerful, why does Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom able to actually collapse the multiverse and create Battleworld? Like, why would God Loki allow him to do that? So they'll have to explain how that goes down. There's also that rumored new version of Black Panther that's supposed to be recasting right now for Black Panther 3, which might wind up being the older version of Toussaint, T'Challa's son, whose real name is actually T'Challa. They could either be using Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars to explain how they age him up and they can do adult Black Panther without having to wait for the young actor to just literally age in real time. Or they could be introducing a multiverse Black Panther. I've already done a much bigger video about that, so I'll link it at the end of this. Captain Marvel is supposed to be a big character in Doomsday. I think she's meant to be on the new Avengers team that's being put together. Shang-Chi originally was supposed to be a big character during Kang Dynasty. I think the Ten Rings were a much bigger plot when it was still Kang Dynasty. I believe the original idea is that Kang would have been the person to create the Ten Rings, and it would have been a big part of them taking him down. But obviously that's all changed now. 100% for sure, Wong is coming back, Ant-Man also probably coming back, and then we have the Young Avengers characters that will also play some small role. I don't think all of them are going to be in the movies. They're going to save some of that stuff for after Secret Wars. We're supposed to be getting Pepper Potts back. They didn't say what she'd be doing, but I'm assuming it'll be similar to the Spider-Man twist where she sees that it's not her, Tony Stark, who's come back, it's someone who's way worse. They didn't say anything about paying off Morgan Stark, though. That feels like a big plot thread that the Russos set up that they'll eventually have to answer at some point. And probably one of the other biggest concepts that they'll probably pay off in Avengers Doomsday is the whole anchor beings thing. That was actually Kevin Feige's big deal for Deadpool and Wolverine, where they weren't really sure how to explain why Deadpool goes after this other version of Wolverine in other universes. Kevin Feige told them to use the idea of anchor beings and the whole idea that you kill an anchor being, it destroys their universe. That's basically the role that Molecule Man served in the original comic book Secret Wars. If he died in a universe, then that universe would die, and it was the same for every single universe. So they might just have Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom come to the MCU trying to kill its anchor being. The funny thing about that is that Kevin Feige wouldn't say who the MCU anchor being is, I think because they hadn't decided yet and they were just waiting for the story of Avengers Doomsday to be done. So everybody let me know in the comments, who do you think the MCU anchor being actually is? It would be hilarious if it wound up being the Rat from Avengers Endgame. But because they did say that over 60 characters are coming back, I obviously only mentioned a fraction of those, so as we hear about more confirmed big characters coming back, I will do more videos. If there's any other big questions you have about what's going on with Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars, just post them in the comments below. Really big reminder is that we do have all the Super Bowl trailers coming in a couple weeks. We're supposed to get that first Fantastic Four trailer. We'll probably get a couple trailers for the Disney Plus Marvel stuff too. And I think they're releasing the Daredevil Born Again trailer next week, so whenever they wind up posting that stuff, of course I will do videos for it. Everybody click here to learn about that brand new version of Black Panther that they're casting, and click here for that brand new Superman footage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.